Okay, welcome to the Prosiliency Podcast. What we're doing today is that we're talking about our Prosiliency Strategy 43210. This is augmenting our podcast because a lot of times we talk about our strategy and you really have no idea what that means. We do, and so this video is kind of explaining what that is. So Eddie, first of all, I'm Vince Vaughn.
Eddie Perez.
Very good. So these are the voices you hear on the podcast. Now, Eddie, so talk to me about 321. So what is 321?
So 321 is 3 copies of the data, 2 media formats. People would usually say disk or tape as 2 different types, and having 1 offsite.
So what's the problem with 321?
So the problem with 321 is it's more of, it is not a strategy that we have that companies are really needing. What it is a lot of times is a stopgap measure.
It's a philosophy, right?
It is a philosophy that...
It's a great philosophy.
And the philosophy is really, there's nothing wrong with the way that they did that. It's where technology was at the time.
Yeah.
But things have changed that allow us now to look forward towards actually implementing a true strategy within the data center.
And it's not specific enough, right? Because you can 321, you just need 3 copies of the data. Okay, well, I can take a backup and do a backup copy, and that's going to protect me.
And I can put it at home, and there's my offsite. Right?
Absolutely, I can put it in a USB drive, and then I'm protected. But that's not organized. That's not orchestrated around recovery, not replication, things like that.
Right.
And so, from our perspective, right, we need a new strategy. And so, what's that new strategy?
The new strategy is 43210. Right, and 43210 is an expansion on that type of that philosophy, right? So, with 0 being, with 4 actually having 4 copies of that data, making sure that for their most business critical applications, the one that is going to cause the most headache, what people call the resume generating events, right?
Yeah.
That's where we make sure we protect that data, right? If you knew that there was data that, or any type of data, a picture of the family or something that was very, very important, you're going to have a digital copy, you're going to put one in the cloud, you're going to have a printed copy, you're going to have one on a USB key. You want to protect it because that's most important to you, right?
Yeah.
And what 0 is we want to have virtually no errors within the data set, right? Making sure that no matter what of those copies we have, if we want to restore it, it's not half of an image of your family, right? It's 100% the same image that you had, right? Maybe it cuts you out or something.
So why do we need a new strategy? I mean, what's the reason why we need 43210?
So, one of the things that we've always discussed with a lot of customers that we've helped out is if we fail at what we do, which is protecting the data, making sure data is what we say it's going to be, then all of a sudden you're talking about how we affect their lives from a standpoint of, and money, right? Of saying that these companies go under, these all of a sudden, any disaster, if
Absolutely.
you're in, when people were talking about, whenever we fly around, we go to different cities, New Orleans, you're talking about New York, any major disasters, Joplin that happens, a lot of those companies that have lost massive data they become, out of business.
Absolutely. Right? How many days does a company need to be down, or not need to be down? How many days when a company goes down that they don't recover? Now, it also affects jobs too. So what I see, a lot of engineers that kind of we're talking to right now, a lot of engineers that are there to protect their company's environment, their company's data. If you don't take this seriously, if you don't take this with some type of gravitas, it's not only going to cost the company money, it will cost them money, but what does that translate to? It translates to jobs. And not just your job, because everyone's looking at you. If you've been in a disaster recovery scenario, it's the most chaotic time in your career. And people are looking at you. When are we going to be up? When are we going to be up? When are we going to be up? And your job is on the line, but not only is your job on the line, but everyone in that company, their jobs are on the line too. And it affects, what else does it affect?
we always, with me coming from the healthcare industry, a lot of times it was making sure that those applications are up at a hospital. If you're going to be at a hospital, you're laying on bed and you're starting to go into some type of seizure or something that's going on, and they're having to give you medicine to hopefully save your life, all of a sudden the data becomes inaccessible. The doctor can't read your charts, right? Nothing's on paper anymore. So then they're starting to figure out, is this person allergic to, medicine X, right? Penicillin, right? And then they give it to that person. Or maybe they're allergic to any type of, putting them in sleep, right? Making sure that everything's going well. If we don't have that data, the doctor has to make his best judgment to say, can we try to save this person's life? And a lot of times, that's what causes a lot of malpractices and things like that, right?
Absolutely.
People affect their lives, and we don't want that to happen. Right?
Yeah, so that's why we're doing what we do. Let's talk a little bit, we're not going to get really in depth, but I want to give you guys a flavor of what a Prosiliency solution looks like that's organized to save money, to save jobs, and to save lives. So why don't you draw on that side?
Right. So a lot of things that we try to do within our customers base is you always start with your data, right? And we'll have our data here put as A. It's our primary system, right? So that's going to be all of the data that you access every day, right? Your live data, your live system. What we want to do is, the first thing that we always want to do is we want to design around the application. We want to design about uptime, business availability.
Yeah, it's about recovery.
Yeah.
Backup is easy. Everybody does backup. Recovery is the art form, and that's what we're talking about here. And so we've got this over here, and we want to make sure, first, a lot of times people will worry about the backup first. What am I going to do with the backup? Well, what we want to do is that we want to make sure this is protected off-site in case of a disaster. First, we don't go to the backup first. We want to figure out what's our recovery strategy, how can we avoid data loss, and so we're going to go off-site here first to go over here.
And when we do that, we're going to make sure that we do this in the format that can be seen. So a lot of companies might deploy some type of standard snapshot technology, things like that, but we want it to be in the format here. So if this isn't a dot, let's just say a BMDK type format, whenever it's being read, we want to make sure that that same exact format is over here. So whenever it's powered on or whenever it's failing over, we don't have to restore that data to actually change it from one format over to another.
Absolutely. Ideally, this is hot. This is ready to be failed over to, and it's an exact copy of what exists on premise that is running here off-site. So now we've got a replication strategy. Now we can talk about what do we need to do on premise.
So one of the things that we've noticed with a lot of customers is a lot of times they'll always do the backup and B will always be the last thing. The weird thing that we've noticed within customers is when we've talked to them, the CIO thinks that they bought this.
Yeah.
But then the CIO actually bought backups, and they'll always go to the IT guy and say, I thought we backed it up, why am I not up? It's like, well, remember that PO that we didn't get the order for that offsite that you thought we didn't need?
Yes.
That insurance policy? Mm-hmm. Well, now we don't have that. And this is why I think I was reading in the CIO magazine that the average CIO life as a CIO for a company is between 18 and 24 months. Because, you're talking about having
until the disaster.
Day, or till the disaster happens, right? And it could be as simple as a single object for a project that's a $2 or $3 million project, but we couldn't restore that data quick enough and we missed that deadline.
Yeah.
Or a legal hold that happened, but we couldn't get access to the data because we said we could restore that data. So that is one of those things where we got to make sure we design for what the higher ups are thinking they're wanting, and then work our way down.
Yeah, because the executives are holding the strategy, and they care about business availability. They care about business continuity. They're the ones saying, listen, if we go down, they know intuitively how much money it's going to cost them when they go down.
Yeah, and you got to make sure on this that when you talk to someone that you do talk about the application. because we're going to be, this is, when we do this, we're talking about the application that we're protecting.
So what kind of apps are you talking about?
So this could be apps as, for the business aspect, for banking, could be like a Fiserv. It could be an exchange, right, for accessing the data. It could be that SQL applications for that ERP environment that people have for tracking, different information within the environment.
Epic, Cerner, those types of applications.
Exactly. So, they care about the app. The CIO doesn't care about a VM 1237655.
Yeah.
They care about application exchange, like
Yeah.
my mail, right?
Yeah.
So we got to make sure when we're talking to leadership, that's almost more important sometimes, is making sure they understand what you're protecting. You can't just say data A goes to data B. You got to say, if application Fiserv goes down in the banking, we have the ability to be up quickly at our secondary site and understand the application.
Yeah, and it translates to RPO and RTO. It boils down to how much data can you afford to lose and how much time is it going to take for you to recover.
And what I'd add too as well, which we always do, is WTO, working time objective. How do you actually go in and say, when is the data, do we feel, we have the data up, we feel we're right we are, when do we tell the business, okay, you're really now ready to use the data?
This is a really important metric, because this is like, okay, we're up, but we're really not.
Yeah, it's like, all right, we have the data, but you can see the candy kid, but you can't actually go take the candy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's your birthday, but you can't get it just yet.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So this is really key.
And so what we like to do then is, this is that first copy off site, and this would be part of where we would say at least one copy off site here. But what we want to do is we want to have this data in two different types of formats, not two different types of media types. So the traditional having a copy of disk and then one on tape is kind of old school, and there's a lot of the pros and cons of these type of configuration.
And we're not dogging tape. Tape
No.
is great for years of, if you're saving years of data,
Right.
tape is cheap, it's great, it's awesome.
Yeah. And I believe in tape in certain aspects.
Absolutely.
But for what we're trying to do here though is, for this secondary copy locally, we would want to have data located here with some type of other way of creating it. And this could be another backup application that are companies that are out there that will actually back it up.
Yeah,
And they create their own format.
backup. We got to take the backup. Absolutely.
And a lot of times I try to do this locally, and what people will always ask me is they'll say, Eddie, why don't I put this over here and I have this backup copy? What people seem to sometimes forget is this here is very expensive. The bandwidth to replicate or backup data from here to here, you're doubling that.
Yeah.
And so, some people's most expensive cost in the IT data center is the monthly networking cost.
Absolutely.
And so I would rather back up over 10 gigabit or 16 gigabit fiber versus 100 meg pipe, because a gigabit network for business class, you're talking thousands and thousands of dollars a month.
Absolutely.
And that's the same issue with people when they start talking about cloud, right? Is how much bandwidth you have to add for that monthly recurring revenue.
Right.
And having this backup in a separate format, where let's say this is in a VMDK format, let's say this is now in a .bkp format, right? And so why that's important is, let's say that a virus comes in, if some weird thing happened and it corrupted all the VMDKs, we have a format that is currently in a non-exposed one where it didn't search for that. It's now set up as a .bk.
You got it.
As an example, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we take this backup, we have the ability to take a backup copy. So we have it over the 10 gig network, we're taking the backup. This is all easy stuff. This is what your backup software already does. The key is to remember that you need an archive over here of that backup. So we've got, sorry, that's a horrible square. There we go. So we're taking this backup and now we're moving it over here to archive this data. This may be 7 days. Why do we want to only keep maybe 7 days over here?
Because most customers don't really have that much. In 7 days is where they want their data to come from. A database is almost useless after 1 day.
Yeah.
If there's a project that's 6 or 7 weeks away, they're okay with waiting a little bit of time to get that data.
Yeah, this is 7 to 30 days.
Yeah.
This is if you need longer term retention, that's more than 31 days plus. And then if you have like more than a year's type of retention, then you might want to talk about tape. This is in my opinion, a bad place to put a deduplicating device, because you want access to this data as quickly as possible if you need to recover from on site. This is a perfect place for a deduplicating device because you're holding data. How much bang for your buck are you going to get for 7 days to 30 days worth of deduplication here versus 31 days to 365?
Right, and the longer you keep data, the higher the dedupe rates, because it's the copy of the copy of the copy of the copy.
Absolutely.
And we want to make sure also is that this is in the native format. From a replication, a lot of storage vendors companies will replicate it natively within the system. Backup softwares now can manage it, but the backup can be happening here.
So give me the data on like 99% of backups or 99% of recoveries are usually taken from where?
So as an example, between 0 and 30 days, what we've seen is 93% of recoveries happen within the first 30 days. I've actually had to test this with thousands of restores to prove it, because I saw on the internet, I was like, hey, let me try it out. And it actually came out pretty close. Between 30 and 60 days is 6%. Of your recoveries will happen, and after 60 days will be about a little less than 1%. So what we always want to do and what we've designed is we want to make sure that we architect for the 99%. So we want to do the 0 to 60 days recoverable from some type of a snapshot technology or something like that. And then for 61 plus days, we want to rely then a lot of times on the backup strategy that we have, because this is how we can guarantee RPOs and RTOs, and this helps us with compliance. That's from a standpoint of making sure that we have that data as long as they need it.
So we've architected for the 99%, but we still plan for the 1%.
Right.
And now, so what we've got here, we've got not 3 copies of the data. For these types of applications, you need 4 copies of the data. For the mission critical, platinum level, SLA type of applications, the application that if it goes down, you get fired. If you take it down, you get fired. We got to treat those applications differently than every other application. So we've got 4 copies of the data for those applications.
Yep. And what we also want to do is make sure that this is not for the whole entire data set.
No.
So when people, like, we talk to individuals, they'll say, well, I can't afford it for all four copies of 100 terabytes. I can't afford 400. Remember that this is only going to be used for what we would consider mission critical, or what you see on the website called gold copies. It's that data that is very important to the business, right?
Yeah.
And how we want to protect that data. With everything else, 3 copies.
3 copies of the data.
3 copies comes in well, and 3 recoverable copies, right? Or 3 accessible copies.
And that 3 copies might be your production, your backup, and either a replica or it's a backup copy. I mean, you're able to decide based on what application how that needs to be backed up. So it's 4 copies, 3 copies, and we've already talked about. We've got 2 different kinds of media here. We've got backup. We've got storage snapshots. One of them being off-site, 0.
With 0 being with virtually no loss of data. And that is where...
And 0 errors.
And 0 errors. And making sure that whenever we are, with every one of these, we have to be able to validate that the data is what we say it is. And that's the hard thing that hardly anybody does, right? They don't go in and they'll say, how often do you test your backups, right? And they don't go in and they don't actually test that particular backup piece and stuff like that. What we want to do is we actually want to go in and say, we've actually tested it and we've validated that it actually works. And from here, you have that ability, you want to be able to have that ability to power up systems from all 4 of these options and power up these applications and make sure that these applications are what we say they are.
Yeah, and that they'll recover. Right. So don't believe us. Forrester's going to tell you that 60% out of every backup that's taken will not recover. 16%. And you don't find that out except at the worst possible time, right? So what Eddie's talking about is that you have the ability to use your backups, use your snapshots as test environments. So you can bring up your backups inside these little networks and run tests. Can I access it on the network? Can I log into the OS? Will the application recover? Those types of things. So you can do that on across your network that you've already invested hardware, software, and human resources into as well. So this is kind of our strategy. Is there anything else we kind of need to cover right this second?
The last thing that I would say is that one thing that people miss is, and we'll go over in another video, our gold, silver, bronze, platinum strategy, which is added on top of on this.
Absolutely.
It's like a layer that's incorporated. But one thing that they want to make sure is a lot of customers are wanting is that they want all of this data to be reported on and managed under a single interface, right? So people want to be able to know, just having the data, now you have, how do I show the business that we are doing what we say we're going to do?
Absolutely.
How do I prove that to leadership? And that's where having some type of reporting strategy builds into this, so we can actually go in and say that here's my data here's my mission critical and where it's actually located, and have that understanding that the business knows at any point in time that they feel comfortable going into a meeting with the CEO, the government, whatever, saying we have the data and we have tested all of our backups and recovery.
And some type of planning tool that allows you to go in and orchestrate, okay, in case something goes down, what's going to happen? What does that look like? How much downtime can I do right now? And have this not take weeks. Have this not take a week. Have this not take days. Basically have a tool that I can learn about this within an hour.
Right, and that's pretty important. And this is kind of, again, understanding that this is the 43210. Your applications will be in part of 4, will probably be in part of 3.
Yeah.
Right, might be part of 2.
Absolutely.
And so we want to make sure that we help those customers understand where that data goes and why we're doing what we're doing.
Awesome. So that's Prosiliency. That's 43210. We just want to make sure that you can reference this whenever we talk about it on the podcast. And if you have feedback, please leave it underneath. We really want to hear your comments. I mean, it really makes our day when we hear a comment, whether it's good, whether it's bad, or whatever. We really want to hear what you have to say about this, because we think it's pretty cool, but there might be a better way to do it, and that's what we want to hear from you. Thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks.